Okay, so now since we're ready to move on to the settings portion of creating a Schoology test, I'm going to show you do's and don'ts and things you want to look out for whenever you're creating a Schoology test to make sure that your test day goes as smooth as possible. So we're on the questions page, like we were before. We're going to move from here to the settings page. Now the settings page is straightforward enough. However, there are a few things where if you add them, your test will be a lot better. If you forget to click something, it could create something somewhat of a disaster. So we do want to make sure that we're paying attention here. Again, if you feel the need to pause, if you are confused about something that I say in the video and you'd like to call me over in the classroom, I'll be more than happy to come over and help you out. But please feel free to click pause and rewind as often as you need to make sure that you are as successful as possible with creating your Schoology test. Now, typically, I don't have any instructions for my tests. If you have specific instructions about the order in which things are done in the test, if you'd like to put a disclaimer in the instructions about academic dishonesty or things like that, you're welcome to write that here. I typically leave this blank. Now, the one big thing that I can tell you about Schoology tests is you want to leave the submissions disabled until your students are ready to take the test. I don't know about you, but typically on test day, I do a mini review session at the beginning of class to see if any of my students are confused about anything on the study guide. If you click enable, your students can see the test and take the test at any time. So I'll leave this disabled until my students are ready to take the test. Uh, and then click enable after we've had our beginning of class discussion. You're also able to click enable until. So if you're worried about remembering to enable or disable something in the test and you don't have the discussion like I have at the beginning of class, you can simply click that you want it to start right now and go until the end of school today, which we'll say is 3 p.m. You also have a way to make a window. So for some of my students who are homebound or hospitalized, I'll say, okay, you have until the start of class tomorrow to take your test, and your test must be completed by the end of class. So you can say enable from today at whatever eighth hour would be, 2 o'clock, and then you have until 3 o'clock. Now, one thing, if you do this, make sure you have the AMs and PMs correct. Otherwise, when you go to save down here, it won't let you save because you have an impossible time frame. So for right now, again, we're going to switch this back to disable. I can't stress enough, if you accidentally click enable, your students who have Schoology on their cell phone are actually able to access the test outside of class. Again, if you're okay with that, uh, feel free to do that however you want to do it in your classroom. I know in my classroom, I don't do that, so I make sure that I hit disable until my students are ready to take the test in the classroom. Um, Another thing that I like to do is I like to put a time limit on my tests. For my students who may be taking this test in their resource class, if they're homebound, if they're hospitalized, and you want to make sure that they aren't taking extra time and possibly being academically dishonest, you can put a time limit on. I'll always make it the 50 minutes that our class periods go for. If a student goes over that, it'll invalidate their test. It won't delete all their submission or all their answers. So you can actually go in, and if a student needed extra time or anything, you can change the time limit after a student has taken the test, so that although they've exceeded the time limit, that all their answers are not lost, and they can finish the test whenever you want them to. Uh, you're going to want to leave this at one attempt limit one time. If you change it to more than one, so if you have a retake policy in your class, the students are able to retake tests whenever they want. I would suggest not doing that or not leaving this at 2 times. You can actually, I'll show you how to do this. You can unsubmit a student's test so they can take it again if that's how you'd like to do things. If you have this attempt limit at 2 times, students can go back and take the test uh, twice or more than twice or however many times you want without your permission, and that's typically a bad thing in my experience. So I leave it at one time. Uh, Another thing you can do, kind of like we talked about with randomizing the order of the answers, you can randomize the order of the questions. So if you have like a test A and a test B for your students to stop them from wanting to cheat off of each other, you can actually randomize the order of the questions and then the order of the answers within the questions, uh, without having to go through the headache of filling out scantrons, determining which student had which test, uh, and bypassing all the headaches that requires. The one thing I'll tell you is in my world cultures test, we do have passages within the test the students should read. We have pictures in the test the students should look at. If you click randomize order, the students, the questions that are grouped with those passages or pictures can get randomized, so they won't necessarily be where they need to be within your test. So make sure you're looking over your test very carefully to make sure that they weren't supposed that you don't have any passages or pictures students need to look at to answer questions. Otherwise, if you click this randomize order button, it will mess things up. I usually leave this at no because I feel that randomizing the order of the answers is usually enough to deter any academic dishonesty. Use this page or leave this paging tab left alone. You leave this language keyboard left alone. The things that I do make sure I do is click yes for question review. The reason you want to do this is when a student thinks they're done with the test, they can review their answers. They'll hit submit. It'll take them to a screen where it just shows them what they have picked for each answer. It will remind them if they left anything blank. Uh, it also protects you or your class from internet outages. If something were to happen to the internet while their students were taking their test, uh, once the internet comes back on, they can log back in and get right back into their test as long as you have this question review and this resumable tab clicked as yes. And then you have an option here for view submissions. What this means is once students are done with the test, can they see what they got right, what they got wrong? If you're worried that students might be memorizing things to tell to other students that are in your different class periods, you can leave this as no. I haven't had a problem with that, so I will click yes, and that will just tell them which answers they got wrong. If you'd like to do test corrections, which I often do with my class, I hit yes with correct answers. So this will tell the students which questions they got wrong, what answer they picked, what was the correct answer, and then we can do test review from there. Once you get to this point, you're pretty much all finished, and you'll hit save changes. Again, if any of that was too fast for you, feel free to rewind and go back to that point or call me over in the classroom. Otherwise, we're going to move on to previewing your test and reviewing your results in the next video.